Welcome to the She's Unleashed podcast hosted by Dr. Mirriam Knight. Get ready, ladies, to embark on a transformative journey of healing, liberation, and empowerment. Join us as we dive deep into authentic and transparent conversations with women of faith in leadership and visionary roles. Together, we'll navigate the complexities of life's wisdom from both spiritual insights and psychological perspectives. Discover practical tools, inspirational stories, and expert insights that will empower you to break free from limitations and step into your true power and purpose. Whether you're seeking healing, growth, or renewed sense of purpose, this podcast is your go-to resource for inspiration and empowerment. Get ready to unleash the extraordinary woman within you. Subscribe now to She's Unleashed podcast and join us on this life-changing journey. I'll see you there. Hey everybody, and welcome to the 13th episode of the She's Unleashed podcast, season 2. I am your host, Dr. Mirriam Knight, and I am so excited. Today we're diving into one of the most powerful and liberating aspects of this journey, the process of unveiling authenticity. I want to apologize for my voice today. I've been doing a lot of shouting over the last few days, but I'm excited for this conversation today. So there's something very incredible and freeing about finally stepping into the fullness of who you are without apologies, without masks, and without the pressure to conform to what others expect. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what it means to live authentically, how to overcome the fear of being seen, and why embracing your true self is an essential part of living out your God-given purpose. If you ever felt like you were holding parts of yourself back or like you've been playing a role instead of living out your real story, this conversation is for you. So I want to encourage you to grab your journal, get comfortable, all right? And we are going to get real about what it means to live authentically. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the first component, the courage to be authentic. This is segment 1. All right. Now, living authentically, it requires us to have some courage. It takes courage to peel back the layers, to let down your guard, and to allow the world to see the real you. And let's be honest, that's not always easy. We live in a world that often values appearance over substance, and it can feel safer to wear a mask than to show up as your true self. But here's what I've learned. Authenticity isn't about being real just with others. It's about first being real with yourself and with God. Now, I want to share a moment from my own journey where I had to make a choice between playing a role and living authentically. There was a season in my life, actually, there's been many seasons in my life where I had felt like I had to fit into the specific mold that everyone expected me to be. As a pastor's kid, the youth leader, the worship leader, the teacher, the preacher, and all these other roles that I was occupying, I felt like I had to constantly match this perfect image of what that role looked like. I was performing well, but inside I was tired. I was tired of trying to be someone that I wasn't, this perfect person. But the truth is, God was calling me to step out of that place. He was calling me to let go of the mask and step into my true identity. That moment was absolutely scary, but it was also the beginning of my journey towards freedom. In Psalm 139, verses 1 to 4, David writes, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know my thoughts, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You are familiar with all my ways." Sis, God knows you, every part of you, your strengths, your weaknesses, your dreams, your fears. You don't have to hide from him, and you don't have to hide from the world. God created you with purpose, and there is power in living authentically as the woman that God designed you to be. So, sis, I want to ask the question, what masks have you been wearing to fit in or meet expectations? I want you to take a moment right here, hit pause on this podcast to reflect on what's keeping you from stepping into full authenticity and invite God into that place. Ask him for the courage to be fully seen. All right, take some time and let's just go in and spend some time and just ask God to step into that place. Now, the second component is overcoming the fear of being seen. Overcoming the fear of being seen. Now, it can be really scary, y'all, to allow yourself to step into the light, into that place of authenticity, and allow yourself to be seen. For many of us, that fear comes from past rejections, past hurts, or the worry that if people really see us, see the real version of us, they won't accept us. But the truth is, the real you, the authentic you, is exactly who God created for a unique purpose. When you step into your true self, when you step into your God self, you give others permission to do the same. Now, I've wrestled with the fear of being seen for a very long time. I struggle with just being vulnerable and sharing my story and sharing my struggles and sharing my imperfections. I didn't want people to see the parts of me that weren't perfect. I thought that if I could just project a certain image, then I'd be accepted, respected, and loved. But what I found was that the more I hid, the more disconnected I felt from myself, from others, and even from God. It wasn't until I began to open up, to allow myself to be seen in my fullness, flaws and all, that I began to experience true connection, genuine connection, and true freedom. It turns out that people didn't want perfection from me. They wanted authenticity, they wanted vulnerability, they wanted genuinity. And more importantly, that is what God wanted from me too. In 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, God tells us, "My grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in weakness." We don't have to be perfect to be powerful. I'm going to say that again. We don't have to be perfect to be powerful. In fact, it's in our authenticity, in our vulnerability, that God's power is most clearly seen. When we allow ourselves to be real, we give God room to work through us in ways that we can't even imagine. Sis, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid that others might see if you live authentically? Take a moment to bring those fears to God and ask Him to replace those fears with His truth, that you indeed are enough, just as you are, and that His grace covers all your imperfections. The third component is embracing your unique design. Living authentically also means embracing the unique way in which God designed you. Each of us has been crafted with special gifts, strengths, and even quirks that make us who we are. And those differences, they're intentional. God didn't make a mistake when He created you. Your personality, your passions, your experiences, they all come together to create a unique expression of His love and purpose in the world. Now, I was speaking at a conference this weekend, and as I was speaking, God revealed this component to me, is that He has a specific set of skills and a specific set of gifts that He has given each and every one of us, and tools and skills that He develops in us as we navigate the journeys of our lives. A lot of times we may want to superimpose what we have been taught and trained in over the lives of other people and show them the path. It's a good intention. But here's the thing. And some other people may want to superimpose on us their gifts, their strengths, their abilities, the lessons that they've learned in their life. And I mean, the intention is good. They want to help us maybe not make the same mistakes they made. They want to help us, and we want to help others avoid certain pitfalls and get through it quicker and faster. But here is the reality: God has a divine process for each and every one of us. And that process is necessary to the developing of muscle, to the developing of skills, to the developing of the person that you were authentically, genuinely created to be. So we need to be okay with our own personalities, our own passion, our own experiences, and stop trying to compare ourselves to other people and how they navigate their different experiences in life and what they use and how they move and how they think, how they the connections they have, the experiences, the education they have. We spend so much time in this comparison wheel, constantly feeling like we're not enough because we're constantly trying to be like other people, when God's design and His intention is that we be exactly who He intended us to be. Everything in your design is meant to come together. And not just in your design, but your process and your journey is meant to come together to create a unique expression of God's love and its purpose in the world. Now, for a long time, I struggled with that same situation, that same issue of comparing myself to others. You might be like, I mean, what do you have to be comparing yourself with others for? See, I would feel like maybe I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not qualified enough. I'm not this enough. I don't have a loud voice. My voice is not this way. And maybe I don't look this way. I don't dress this way. I would look at other people and think, why can't I be more like that person? Why can't I have their strengths? But God had to gently remind me that comparison is the thief of joy, and it's also the thief of purpose. When I was busy wishing I could be somebody else, I was missing the beauty of who God made me to be. Ephesians 2, verse 10 tells us that we are God's handiwork. Other versions say we are God's masterpieces, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Sis, you are God's masterpiece. You are his handiwork. He has already equipped you for the good work that he has called you to do. You are lacking nothing. Everything that you need to be who God has called you to be, to do what he's called you to do, it is already built into your very design, into the fabric and the essence of who you are. The world doesn't need a copy of you. They don't need a copy of someone else. They need you to be the unique expression of Christ that only you can bring to the table. So, sis, where in your life have you been comparing yourself to other people? What would it look like to fully embrace your unique design and stop striving to be somebody else? Take some time right now. Go ahead, hit pause. Take some time to reflect on the gifts, the strengths, and the passions that God has placed inside of you. Take some time to reflect on in what ways have you been comparing your story, your journey, your gift to somebody else and always feeling like you don't measure up, that you're not good enough. And take some time right now to think about what it would mean for you to fully embrace your own unique design. Embrace that God made you this way for a specific reason, that there is no mistake in how he designed you. Take some time. The last component I want to talk about today is living authentically in your purpose. As you get to understand that you need courage, you need courage to be authentic, to be who God has genuinely created you to be as an expression of himself. That number two, you have to overcome the fear of being seen. A lot of us, we are afraid of being seen, and the reason behind it too is this imposter syndrome, the fear that we don't really belong in the spaces that we've been called to, assigned to. We're afraid that someone is going to expose us. We're afraid that the curtain is going to be drawn and people are going to find out that we're a fraud, that we were never really meant to have a seat at the table. And so we're afraid to be seen. We're afraid to come into the light because we're scared that the spotlight is going to be on us and they're going to see all our flaws and all our imperfections. But we have to recognize that it's okay for them to see our flaws and our imperfections, because that is evidence that God can use an imperfect human being, that God can use a broken vessel, that God can use us. And if he can use us, then he can use them too, right? So we have to get over or work through that fear of being seen and allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to be seen. And number three, we have to embrace our unique design. And as we encompass all of these three things, we have to actually begin to live authentically in our purpose. When we start to do that, incredible things happen. We begin to walk in our purpose with a new level of freedom and confidence. Living authentically doesn't mean that we have everything figured out. It doesn't even mean that we won't face challenges, but it does mean that we're showing up fully, trusting that God's plan for us is greater than anything we could have imagined. So here are some three steps. Here are three steps that you can use to start living authentically today. Start each day with a moment of reflection. Ask God to show you where you're holding back, where you're hiding parts of yourself, where he's calling you to step out of the shadows and step out authentically and boldly and courageously into what he's calling you to do, but more importantly, who he's calling you to be. Number two, speak truth over yourself. When those doubts and fears start to creep in, speak God's truth over yourself. Remind yourself that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that God's grace is enough, and that you are fully equipped for what he has called you to do. And number three, celebrate your wins. Celebrate the moments when you show up as your authentic self. No matter how small that is, each step that you take towards authenticity is a victory worth acknowledging. Now, living authentically is an ongoing journey. There are moments, there's still days when I have to remind myself to let go of the pressure to perform and just simply be. But I can tell you this, living authentically has brought me more peace, more joy, and more purpose in my life than I've ever thought possible. And here's the thing, living authentically doesn't mean that we just be whoever we want to be, however we want to be, but it's embracing who He designed us to be. It's God, bring me back to recalibrate me, realign me to your design for my life. Remember that trauma and pain and all the lies of the enemy and all the influences from society can try to forge us and shape us into a counterfeit or a lesser form or a distorted form of who we are meant to be, who He created us to be. The key is to find ourselves recalibrating and realigning with His original intent for our lives. So, what is one area in your life that you can start living more authentically in today? Maybe it's your relationships, maybe it's your work, or maybe it's how you show up for yourself. Take a step this week to embrace who God created you to be and live in that truth. Authenticity is a powerful thing. It is the key to unlocking the fullness of who God created you to be and the purpose He's called you to fulfill. As you go through this week, I want to encourage you to take off the mask, let go of the fear, and step boldly into the woman God has designed you to be. You are enough, sis. You are loved and you are fully equipped to live out your purpose in this week. This week, take some time to reflect on the masks you've been wearing and the areas where you've been holding yourself back. Ask God to give you the courage to live authentically and celebrate each step you take towards that freedom. And if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story. Email me at connect@destiny-connections.com or share a post on social media with the hashtag She Is Unleashed. And let's continue walking this journey of authenticity together. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this episode today, um, and on this podcast in general. If today's conversation encouraged you, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Remember, living authentically isn't about just being real with others. It's about being real with yourself and with God. It's about embracing your unique design. It's about having the courage to be authentic. It's about being willing to be seen and actually taking action to live in that authenticity of who God says you are, who God intended you to be. So, sis, until next time, I want to encourage you to stay blessed, stay encouraged, and stay unleashed.